Hey, I'm Danielle, and today we're talking about how to get a side gig. Flashback to a year ago, I actually had 5 jobs, so I was fully in the gig life, I guess you could say. So it was a learning experience, but I did definitely get an understanding of how to really get a side gig. My side gigs included being a yoga teacher, being like a behavioral interviewer. I was a mentor and kind of like a program manager. I've been a hostess. I have been kind of like a PR consultant. It's very wide-ranging. So anyway, enough about me. Let's talk about how to get you a side gig. The first thing you want to think about is why you want a side gig. It seems obvious, but this is actually going to filter the type of role that you choose or the type of thing that you pursue. So do you want a side gig because of extra cash? That's a pretty clear reason. Do you want the experience? Are you transitioning careers and you just want to expose yourself to a new type of work? Or are you not getting something in your current work, in your current, let's say, day job, or what you're spending the rest of your time on that you really want to use a side gig in order to fulfill? So which one of these reasons seems most relevant for you? Keep that in mind as you pursue it. Before we go any further, I do have to clarify something, which is if you want your side gig to be something entrepreneurial, I will just say that with the exception of my experience of hostess, which is pretty standard, let's say, everything else that I did was pretty entrepreneurial, and either I was working specifically for an entrepreneur like a solopreneur, or just what I was doing within that work was very entrepreneurial. So all of these tips are 100% relevant to that. And I do have a hunch that in the future, people are going to be more and more entrepreneurial, meaning instead of having a very standard career like what we would have seen 10 years ago, it's going to be more of like a hodgepodge, like a mixture of a bunch of different either gigs or just like this kind of eclectic collection. And those are my predictions. Can't see into the future, but if I had to take a wild guess, that's what I think. If you're working on how to get a side gig now, you are ahead of the game. But anyway, no more bunny trails. Let's get back to the steps. We talked about finding the why behind it and using that as a filter for what kind of gig you want to pursue. The next piece is huge. This is really the main focus. I'll tell you right now, it's relationships. People say it's not what you know, it's who you know, and that is 100% true, and I will tell you why. The way that you are going to find out about these side gigs, as well as actually have the trust in order to build them, is through the relationships you have. Now, don't worry if you're like, I don't know anybody career-wise. I will tell you exactly how to do that, but just remember, relationships are key. Now, the most straightforward way to build those professional relationships is through one specific tool, and that is informational interviews. Sounds boring as heck, but let me tell you, it works. And what you're going to do is you're going to track down the names of people who are doing work that you're interested in, or at least curious about, or working for companies or programs or initiatives that you want to be involved in. And what you're going to do is you're going to reach out to them and say, hey, I'm really interested in blank, blank, blank that you're doing. Do you have 20 minutes to hop on the phone? And honestly, I've sent, maybe 15 of those emails, and almost everybody says yes. And I think it was like one person of those 15 said, I can answer your questions via email. But those conversations that I've had, those informational interviews, have helped me to build really important relationships, get opportunities, I swear. And it really isn't that hard. It does not take that long. And then when you're setting up those conversations, that's where this third piece comes in, which is figuring out what you want. That sounds really daunting. I know we're all kind of just figuring out and don't know what the hell's going on. But if you have just a starting point, like something you're curious about, interested in, potentially an industry or a person you might want to work with, or a specific skill you're interested in building, that is a perfectly good starting point. And here's where it comes into play. When you're having those informational interviews and you say, this is the kind of thing that I'm interested in, that I'm looking for opportunities to get experience in, who do you think I should talk to? 9 times out of 10, they'll have a great suggestion. They'll be able to connect you via email, and boom, you're in. Then you have a conversation with them, and either they know somebody else, or you're on the right track, or you're, talking to the right person. This is how you do it. And on a little side note, I do think it's easier to get a side gig than it is to get a full-time job. So let's say you get in touch with somebody who wants you to help them out for just a couple hours a week to do the type of work that you're interested in and the kind of skills you want to learn. and you don't like your full-time job, but you've got this couple hours a week. That may not seem like much, but here's the deal. If you do great work, that is gonna expand. They'll see that you're doing a good job and they'll want you to take on more, and that could potentially turn into a full-time role, or it could at least expand into a larger piece of your work life. We just talked about the 3 key steps here, so let's go over them. The first is figuring out why you want a side gig, so that you know if you're pursuing it for extra money or a certain type of experience, or if there's something you're missing in your current work life that you want this gig to fulfill. Knowing the answer to that question, that why, is gonna be a lens as you're seeking out your side gig. The second piece here is relationships. And so you wanna build those relationships through informational interviews, reaching out to people via email to see if they'll hop on the phone for 20 minutes and answer your questions about that type of work, and ask that question, who else do you think I should talk to if I'm interested in blank? And that is seriously how to get work, and let it start small and let it expand. And yep, I did just mention that third piece, being clear about what you're actually looking for so that you can express it to people when you're talking to them, and either they might have some work you can do, or they know somebody, or they know someone who knows someone, and that's how you get connected with great work. All of those side gigs that I mentioned at the beginning, I did get through some piece of this process, probably relationships, because I told you that is the key. So as we wrap this video up, I'll share how I got a specific side gig that I mentioned. So the behavioral interviews that I talked about, that is definitely one of the side gigs that I do that I get the most enjoyment out of and make the most money from. And I'll tell you how I got this. I was actually talking to my godmother, who I hadn't spoken to in a couple years, and we were on a walk with a couple of my family members, and I was just talking to her about the kind of work that I was looking to do and the kinds of things I was interested in, and said, you know, do you know anybody connected to this stuff? And one of the things that I mentioned was strengths and personality assessments, and I'm obsessed with that kind of thing. And so she actually connected me with this person, Mary, who I work for now, and it started as an email introduction, and then it became a phone conversation, and then an official interview, and here I am working for her today. And honestly, that was all about relationships and all about that persistent communication and being clear about what I really wanted and just communicating that. And so it's awesome that that is a part of my life today. So as you're pursuing a side gig, I wish you luck. I believe in you, and seriously, this is like the career of the future, I believe, and so the fact that you're pursuing this kind of thing now, I think is amazing. So again, good luck. Thank you so much for watching this video. Subscribe so that you can get more videos about career and side gigs and personal development. That's the kind of stuff I love talking about. And I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!